Episode 230. The dares were getting steamier. Yes and yes. Jackson did not hesitate to look at Mary. She drank some water, her look complicated. Jackson quickly removed his gaze from her and turned the bottle. This time it was Stephen Wrong, who was still relatively unfamiliar to everyone. Stephen took a card of truth and threw it towards Drake. Drake was perplexed. Since when had he become the game's spokesperson? What is the most shameful thing in your life? Not expecting that question, Stephen was somewhat disappointed. After thinking about it, he replied, It was probably when I tried to please and impress this woman I really, really liked, and the woman threw me out like a rag. Then he glanced at Miranda. Miranda pretended not to understand and sneered. I mean, you deserve it when you fall for someone like Lila Cox. She mentioned Lila again. Stephen was a bit upset and said calmly, Miranda, you know who I'm talking about. Something fishy was going on. Drake listened carefully, gazing at Stephen first and then Miranda. He was feeling very uncomfortable. This guy, did he win over Miranda already? It couldn't be. Miranda was stern and perpetually always unimpressed. It was very difficult to impress her. Even Drake himself had not succeeded yet. With such a bad history, how could Stephen Wrong beat him to it? Miranda ignored him and Stephen continued to turn the bottle, and the next one was Jake. Drake waved and said, Don't choose truth, it's too boring. You're a daring man. Choose dare. Jake heard that and immediately put down his hand, which was reaching for a dare card, and instead picked up a card of truth. Drake sighed. Damn it! What is the most moving thing that your partner did for you? Jake looked at Serena from the side. She bowed her head slightly. It seemed that she had not done anything particularly romantic. He reached out and took her into his arms. With his deep and gentle voice, he said, She is still alive. With those 4 words, Serena was overwhelmed with mixed feelings. An inexplicable feeling burst out from the depths of her soul. She looked up into his eyes. They were as deep as the brilliant galaxy on the night sky of Antarctica, almost finding her. Just that? Drake was a bit surprised. Yeah, and that is enough. Jake answered in a low voice. Serena had wet eyes as she hugged him back. Hey, don't do this! Stop behaving like this! Drake covered his eyes. Jake smiled and said, To play this controversial game, you are not scared. But seeing my wife embracing me irks you? You are a jealous man, Drake. Drake ignored his comment and spun the bottle. It landed on him. He was a little excited, rubbing his hands together. He picked dare. If he had good luck, he might even have an instruction of making out with someone, or doing push-ups without his shirt. And then he would definitely be able to impress Miranda. However, when he picked up the card, he was dumbfounded. Henry saw him like that, took the card and laughed. Perform coital vocalization for 20 seconds. Hearing this, everyone laughed hard. Drake stood up angrily. It's not fair. Why can't I choose someone to do the dare with? I can only moan myself, and I haven't had sex before, so how should I know how to do it? There was pin-drop silence in the room. Oh! Mary started to make a fuss. So you're a virgin! Drake's face was flushed. He said matter-of-factly, So, what's wrong with that? This means I don't mess around. I'm a very good man. We don't care. Now get to it. Jackson waved his hand and said, Do you want to bail? Henry felt like his heart was cold and hurting. He sat back down. facing the gloating or anticipating looks of everyone. He curled his legs up and made his eyes watery, putting one hand across his chest. Biting his lower lip, he caressed his leg in a way he thought to be attractive. Serena laughed out loud in her husband's arms, and Jake too burst out laughing. Drake touched his head and made a long and windy moan. This is so tough on my eyes. Enough! Henry could not bear to watch it, covering his own eyes. But Drake went towards Henry and deliberately continued in order to disturb him, making those sounds louder. What the hell? Where do these strange sounds come from? Jackson waved his hand. Enough! Don't harm our ears! Mary laughed and leaned on the sofa, her stomach sore. Miranda was grinning and squatting, and eventually she couldn't help but fall sideways. Stephen saw that she had inadvertently leaned against him, curled his lips and pretended to notice nothing, looking in the direction of Drake. Seeing that, Drake immediately sat straight and pulled Miranda up. All right now, show's over. Sit up like a lady. Then he turned the bottle again. This time it was Mary. She was still laughing. Seeing everyone looking at her, she realized what had happened and said, There! Use all you got to seduce anyone other than your partner. Seduce? Mary raised her eyebrows. Other than my partner? Correct. Serena asked. Seduce how? No. Jackson snorted and said, Nope. Get a new one. That can't be done. The rules must be followed or it'll be boring. Henry retaliated. Okay then, birthday girl. Who do you want to seduce? Mary stood up and looked around. Her eyes first fell on Jake. Serena covered the face of Jake like a protective hen and shouted, No! Jake curled his lips and took her hand down, nodding. No. Mary shrugged and then walked over to Henry, who was opposite her. Jackson grabbed her hand, his beautiful eyes filled with venom. She felt a bit spooked, but this might be her only chance. Mary still got rid of his hand and said, It's just a game, don't get serious. Henry saw her coming towards him and felt anxious. Glancing at Jackson, he cleared his throat. Mare, would you get a new card? Henry could not afford to cross someone as powerful as Jackson at this point. What if he misunderstood that Henry wanted to steal his woman? Mary came straight up, pushed his shoulders backward, and leaned down herself. One of her legs curled up between his knees. Seeing such a hot scene, Serena stared, her eyes wide. For real? Jackson's fist clenched tight as he glared at the red dress of Mary from the back. Staring at Henry for several seconds, she noticed the shock and horror in his eyes. Mary curled her red lips and then licked them with her tongue, gazing at him and then squinting. Mary! Jackson couldn't bear it, stood up and growled. She straightened her body up and turned to look at him. Just a joke! What are you worried about? Then she walked towards the group, took the bottle and turned it.